The galaxy was vast, a sprawling expanse of stars and planets, home to countless species, each more powerful, ancient, and cunning than the last. The universe had its own rules: survival of the fittest, where the strong preyed upon the weak, and civilizations rose and fell like the tides of time. Humanity, despite its achievements and boundless potential, was still young, still fragile in the grand tapestry of the cosmos. But, like the predators that hunted in the shadows, humankind was about to learn that it was never wise to underestimate them. The story began in the heart of the Gravis system, a distant, hostile corner of space, where an ancient alien empire had long held dominion over the stars. The Dominari, a race of towering, reptilian beings, had once ruled this sector with an iron fist. They had conquered hundreds of planets, enslaved millions, and crushed any hope of resistance with their overwhelming might. But in their arrogance, they had made a grave mistake. They had decided to hunt humans. At first, the encounters had been small, raids on colonies, the occasional skirmish at the fringes of the galaxy. But the Dominari saw humanity as weak, no match for their advanced technology or savage instincts. The humans, they believed, would be easy prey. So, they unleashed their fleets, striking at the heart of human territory, capturing worlds, and enslaving billions. But humanity refused to die quietly. It was in their blood, an instinct as old as the species itself: survival. And when pushed to the edge, humans did what they did best: they adapted. They fought with everything they had, using their cunning, their resourcefulness, and above all, their will to survive. The Dominari underestimated them, and for a while, they paid the price. A small group of human soldiers, desperate and outnumbered, led a series of guerrilla attacks against the Dominari forces on a world called Tryon. The Dominari had thought it would be a simple campaign, a few weeks of clearing out rebels, followed by a return to their conquest. Instead, the humans proved more difficult to root out than anticipated. They knew the land, the terrain, the technology. They knew how to strike swiftly, disappear into the wilderness, and return when least expected. The human fighters weren't just soldiers, they were survivors. They used their ingenuity to sabotage the Dominari's war machines, planting bombs in their supply depots and disrupting their communications networks. With every victory, their confidence grew. They sent a message across the stars: humanity was not to be underestimated. But it wasn't just on the battlefield that humanity began to show its true potential. While the Dominari were content to rely on brute force, humans realized they needed more than just weapons to survive in this new world. They needed allies. Unbeknownst to the Dominari, humans had been quietly forging alliances with other alien species. They sought out the Drekan, a race of nomadic traders known for their sharp intellect and vast knowledge of the galaxy's hidden networks. They formed pacts with the Zalarians, a reptilian race from a distant jungle world, who admired humanity's tenacity. And, most crucially, they formed an unlikely alliance with the Mechari, a race of technologically advanced artificial lifeforms who had been exiled from their homeworld by the Dominari centuries ago. With these alliances, humanity began to build its strength, not just in terms of weapons, but in knowledge, strategy, and tactics. They learned how to harness the powers of alien technologies, adapt them to their own needs, and turn the tide of battle in their favor. They learned how to outthink, outlast, and outmaneuver their enemies, even when facing overwhelming odds. The Dominari, though powerful, were not invincible. They were complacent, accustomed to their status as the apex species. They believed their reign would never end, that their might would never be challenged. But they were wrong. Humanity had become a force to be reckoned with. As the humans' resistance spread, more and more alien species joined their cause. It wasn't just a fight for survival anymore, it was a fight for the future of the galaxy. The Dominari's reign was beginning to crumble, and humanity was at the center of it all, a thorn in their side that refused to be ignored. But the battle had only just begun. The Dominari were not going to surrender their dominance so easily. Their response would be swift and merciless. The galaxy would soon find itself at the brink of an all-out war, one where the stakes were nothing less than the future of civilization itself. And in this war, humanity would not just be fighting for survival. This time, they would fight to become the predators, the apex species of the stars. The universe was watching. News of humanity's small but significant victory spread like wildfire across the stars. As the Dominari's grip on their empire began to loosen, whispers of rebellion stirred in the dark corners of the galaxy. Many alien species, long subjugated by the Dominari, saw the humans' defiance as a glimmer of hope. It was a beacon, a symbol that even the most powerful empires could fall. And they were not alone in their aspirations. The Dominari had created enemies everywhere they had conquered, enemies who now saw an opportunity. But the war was far from over. Humanity had managed to hold the line, but at great cost. Planets fell, colonies burned, and the toll of constant skirmishes was beginning to wear down the resistance. The Dominari had underestimated humanity's resilience, but now they were adjusting their strategies. No longer would they fight in the shadows. Now, the hunt would be brought to the human doorstep. In the heart of the human resistance, on a hidden station orbiting the jungle moon of Drakva, a council of leaders gathered to discuss their next move. The room was dimly lit, the hum of machinery and the soft murmur of strategists filling the air. General Kayla Reyes, the military leader of the human resistance, stood at the head of the table, her face etched with the exhaustion of endless battles. The time had come to make a decision that would change the course of the war, and the galaxy. "Report," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. One of the council members, a former scientist turned strategist, stepped forward. "The Dominari are consolidating their forces. We've intercepted communications suggesting they've discovered the location of our main fleet. They'll be here within the week." Kayla's eyes narrowed. "They'll come in force. We'll be outnumbered, outgunned. But not outwitted," the strategist added. "We've been working on something we think will give us an edge." Kayla raised an eyebrow. "You have my attention." The scientist activated a holographic display, and a map of the surrounding star systems appeared, along with a schematic of a strange new ship design. It was a sleek vessel, more advanced than anything humanity had produced before. Its engines were based on alien technology scavenged from their new allies, its weapon systems adapted from the Dominari's own designs, with one key difference: it was fast. It could hit hard, then vanish before the enemy could even react. "We've dubbed it the Spectre," the scientist explained. "It's a stealth-class warship, capable of cloaking itself from all known detection methods. With this, we can strike the Dominari at their core. Take their command centers, disrupt their fleets, and inflict damage where it hurts the most." Kayla studied the design. This was more than just a ship, it was a symbol of everything humanity had learned in its struggle for survival. It was a weapon forged from their ingenuity, their alliances, and their will to adapt. But it wasn't just a piece of technology. It was a statement. Humanity was no longer the prey. They had become predators. "We'll need to act fast," Kayla said, her mind already racing with possibilities. "This could be the break we need. Assemble the crews. Get the Spectre prototypes ready." The strategist hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "There's one more thing, General. We've decrypted a message from the Dominari fleet. They're bringing something new." Kayla's expression hardened. "What is it?" The strategist's face was grim. "They're deploying a new weapon, a biological agent capable of wiping out entire populations in a matter of days. They call it the Purge. If they use it on us, we won't stand a chance." The room fell silent as the implications of the news sank in. This was no longer just a battle for survival, it was a race against time. The Dominari had a weapon that could potentially erase humanity from the stars in a heartbeat. But Kayla's resolve did not falter. She had seen too many fall in the struggle, and she knew that the fight was far from over. Humanity had faced extinction before, and they had survived. They would not be wiped out now. "We'll destroy it before it reaches us," she said, her voice cold with determination. "Get me a fleet, and we'll take the fight to them." The council members exchanged looks, each one aware of the danger they were about to face. But they had no choice. The time had come for humanity to fight back with everything they had. The Dominari would not be allowed to wipe them out. They would learn, just as the humans had, that the predator could become the prey. Time was running out. As the human resistance prepared for its boldest move yet, the Dominion fleet surged toward their position, its ships cutting a swath through the void with terrifying efficiency. On the eve of battle, the resistance assembled in the darkened command center of the hidden station. Kayla Reyes stood at the head of the room, her eyes focused on the hollow map, fingers tapping the console in front of her. The Spectre warships, humanity's first true Predator-class vessels, would lead the charge. But the threat of the Purge lingered in the back of her mind, a weapon too deadly to ignore. Command reports the Spectre fleet is ready for launch, a voice from behind her spoke up. It was Commander Jace Thorne, Kayla's second-in-command and the one she trusted to carry out her orders. His expression was stern, the weight of the coming battle evident in the lines of his face. Our allies, the Dreeken and Mechari, are in position as well. Kayla turned to him, her voice low but steady. It's not enough. The Dominari's fleet is massive, and their flagship, the Devastator, leads the charge. We've got one shot at this, Jace. Thorne nodded, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. The Devastator wasn't just a warship, it was a fortress in space, bristling with advanced weapons and shielding that no human fleet could withstand. If humanity was to have any chance at victory, they would need to strike decisively and fast. We'll take out the Devastator first, Kayla continued. The rest of the fleet will fall apart without their command structure. But we can't afford to wait for them to get close. Once we engage, the Purge will be unleashed. We need to stop it before it reaches any of our colonies. The room fell into a heavy silence. Everyone knew what was at stake. The specter of the Purge hung over them all, a dark cloud that threatened to wipe out humanity in a single stroke. But Kayla's plan wasn't just about survival. It was about taking the fight to the Dominari and proving once and for all that humanity was no longer the prey. As the first wave of Spectre warships launched into space, their cloaking technology activated, rendering them invisible to even the most sophisticated scanners. The human fleet, a mix of ships from their allies and their own designs, followed close behind, slipping through the darkness, preparing for a strike unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The plan was simple: hit the Dominari hard, fast, and before they could react. The Resistance had learned from the mistakes of their past. They had learned how to operate in the shadows, how to strike with precision, and how to make every moment count. The Spectres would infiltrate the Dominari fleet, using their stealth capabilities to disable key communications and command centers, while the main fleet would launch a brutal, concentrated assault on the Devastator. They were fighting not just for survival anymore, they were fighting for their place in the stars. On my mark, Kayla said, her voice cutting through the silence, we strike. In the distance, the black void of space erupted with the sudden flash of hyperdrives. The Dominari fleet had entered the system. Kayla's heart pounded in her chest as the countdown began. They had mere minutes before the battle would begin in earnest. The Resistance ships readied themselves for the most dangerous mission humanity had ever attempted. But no one hesitated. They were not afraid anymore. They were ready. The first salvo of the battle began with a flash. Spectre warships, once invisible, now emerged from the darkness, launching their first wave of precision strikes. The Dominari were caught off guard, unable to detect the incoming attack until it was too late. Explosions rippled across their lines, and ships erupted into flames as the human ships disabled their communication arrays, one after another. The command ships were blind, cut off from their fleet. And then, Kayla's fleet arrived. A fleet that had been waiting for the moment to strike. The full brunt of humanity's combined forces, from the Dreeken traders and nimble ships to the advanced Mechari vessels, collided with the Dominari head-on. The sky above the battlefield became a storm of explosions and gunfire as the Resistance poured all their firepower into the Devastator. The Dominari flagship, the towering behemoth of steel and death, was a force to be reckoned with. But it was not invincible. Every shield, every weapon, was designed with the arrogance of the Dominari, built to withstand lesser species. They had never anticipated humanity's ingenuity, nor the sheer ferocity that burned in the hearts of those who had everything to lose. "Focus fire on their weapons arrays," Kayla ordered, as her ship, the Vanguard, darted between enemy fire. "Take out their main guns." The battle waged on, each moment a desperate struggle. The Resistance's fleet was small compared to the Dominari's, but it was growing stronger with every passing second. The Spectre warships flitted between the enemy lines, striking with precision, vanishing into the darkness, only to return and strike again. The tide was turning. But just as victory seemed within reach, the unthinkable happened. A massive, glowing sphere appeared in the sky. It was the Purge. The weapon unleashed its terrible power, a shockwave of toxic gas and energy that surged toward the Resistance fleet. Kayla's blood ran cold as the horrific realization hit. The Purge was no longer a threat on the horizon, it was here. "Get to the Spectres." "Now," she yelled. There was no time to waste. The war had changed in an instant, and humanity's fight to become the apex species of the stars was about to get much, much darker. The Purge. It was a weapon unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. The glowing sphere rippled with deadly energy, its toxic atmosphere spreading with terrifying speed. As the gas began to seep out and spread across the battlefield, entire sections of the Resistance fleet were engulfed in a haze of shimmering light. The air, thick with poison, threatened to choke the life from those it touched. The Purge wasn't just a weapon, it was an extinction event in the making. It could wipe out entire populations, turn thriving worlds into lifeless husks, and erase entire species from the stars. Kayla Reyes stared at the hollow display in disbelief as the shockwave of the Purge engulfed one of the human ships. The Vanguard, her flagship, rocked violently from the energy waves. Alarms blared, and warning lights flashed across the command center. "General, we're being exposed to the Purge's effects," shouted Commander Thorne, his voice tense. His hands were moving rapidly across the console, trying to keep the ship's systems online. But even the Vanguard, with all its advanced systems, was struggling. It was only a matter of time before the toxin reached them. Kayla didn't need to be told. She already knew what was at stake. The Purge wasn't just an environmental hazard, it was a weapon that targeted every living organism, breaking down their immune systems and leaving them vulnerable to its deadly embrace. If they didn't act fast, the fleet would be wiped out, and humanity's last chance at survival would be gone in a matter of hours. "Jace," she shouted. "Get to the Spectres, now! We need to move before it spreads too far." Thorne nodded, already moving to the ship's comms. "All units, execute Protocol Delta. Evacuate to the Spectres. I repeat, evacuate to the Spectres. Leave no one behind." The Spectres had been humanity's hope, a weapon that could strike from the shadows and escape undetected. But now, they were their only hope for survival. Their cloaking technology was their only defense against the Purge. The human fleet had to regroup, and the Spectres would be their lifeline. But getting to the Spectres wasn't going to be easy. The Dominari fleet, now fully aware of the threat humanity posed, was no longer just hunting for targets, it was hunting for survivors. Their ships had gone dark, slipping into the shadows to track the human vessels, waiting for the Resistance to make a mistake. But it wasn't just the Dominari that Kayla had to worry about now. The Purge was spreading faster than expected. Ships that had been caught in the initial blast were already reporting casualties, their crews succumbing to the effects of the weapon. Kayla knew they had no time to waste. The Spectres were humanity's last line of defense, and they had to be deployed before the Purge wiped them all out. "Set course for the closest Spectre. We'll regroup and figure out our next move there," Kayla ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Commander Thorne, you take the lead." Jace Thorne nodded, moving quickly to the helm of the Vanguard to take control. The ship lurched as it adjusted course, speeding toward the Spectre fleet. The human vessels, struggling to maintain their cohesion, began to fall into formation, scattering into the darkness of space as they sought refuge in the shadows. As they moved toward the Spectres, a harsh voice crackled over the comms, the static laced with an unmistakable tone of triumph. It was the Dominari. Humans, you will not escape. The purge will cleanse the galaxy of your filth. Surrender now, and we may allow you to die quickly. Kayla clenched her fists, staring at the speaker in her hands. The arrogance of the Dominari was maddening. They thought they had already won. They thought the purge was the final nail in humanity's coffin. But Kayla refused to give in to fear. The humans had survived worse. They had fought, adapted, and persevered. They would not be wiped out now. We will not surrender, she muttered under her breath. Not now. Not ever. As the fleet made its way toward the Spectre vessels, the purge continued to spread, creeping ever closer. The air aboard the Vanguard was growing thick, the atmosphere becoming harder to breathe as the toxin began to infiltrate their systems. Kayla's vision blurred, her head spinning from the effects. But there was no time for weakness, no time for hesitation. The Spectres were their only chance. Suddenly, a sharp, warning beep cut through the comms. The nearest Spectre had signaled an incoming attack. What is it? Kayla demanded, her heart racing. They've locked onto us, Jace replied grimly. The Dominari fleet is closing in. They know we're here. The Vanguard rocked as the first salvo of weapons fire hit. Kayla's body was slammed back into her seat as the ship veered off course, trying to evade the incoming fire. The Spectres, already cloaked, had been detected. The purge wasn't just destroying their ships, it was slowing them down, disrupting their systems, and leaving them vulnerable. We're losing power, shouted a technician. The toxin is interfering with our core systems. Kayla's mind raced. The Spectres were humanity's only chance to turn the tide of the war, but now the purge was compromising their fleet. She had to make a choice, and it had to be fast. Full speed ahead, she ordered. Get us to that Spectre. We won't make it out of here without them. With the Dominari closing in and the purge poisoning their fleet, humanity's fight for survival had become a battle against time, and a battle that was about to reveal just how far they were willing to go to survive. The Vanguard hurtled through space, its engines sputtering and flickering as the crew fought to maintain control. The purge had already claimed parts of the ship, oxygen systems were failing, communication lines were down, and the crew's movements had slowed as the toxin seeped deeper into their systems. Kayla Reyes struggled to stay conscious, the faint smell of burning circuitry and the dry, metallic taste in the air reminding her how close they were to the brink. General, Commander Thorne's voice crackled over the comms, hoarse and urgent. We're not going to make it. The purge's effects are escalating faster than we anticipated. If we don't get to the Spectre within the next few minutes, we'll be too far gone to operate. Kayla clenched her jaw, her fingers gripping the edge of the console as the walls seemed to tilt under the strain. The purge was killing them, slowly but relentlessly. They had to reach the Spectres. Those cloaked warships hidden in the dark recesses of space were their only chance for survival. But the Dominari fleet, sensing the weakness in humanity's ranks, was closing in fast, determined to finish the job. Through the ship's shattered windows, Kayla saw flashes of energy as the Dominari ships continued to fire upon the Resistance fleet. They had entered the fray with brutal efficiency, targeting human ships with devastating force, the power of their assault unmatched. The Resistance had been crippled in seconds. The Spectre fleet was humanity's final hope. These advanced stealth ships, now the last bastion of human strength, were nearly invisible to the Dominari sensors. But with the purge poisoning their ships, their technological advantage was quickly diminishing. Jace, we need to buy more time, Kayla said, her voice a whisper, though she could barely hear it over the chaos. If we don't. I know, he replied, his tone grim. I'm already on it. We'll run interference. Get the rest of the fleet out of here. If we don't act now, there won't be anyone left to save. Kayla's heart raced, but there was no time for second thoughts. The decision was made. They would have to draw the Dominari away, giving the remaining human ships a chance to regroup and reach the Spectres. Commander Thorne, take the lead, she ordered. We'll hold the line here. The rest of the fleet will scatter. We need them to focus on us. You know what to do. Thorn nodded sharply, his face set in hard determination. Understood. We're buying humanity time. In the next instant, the vanguard surged forward, her hull groaning under the strain. The remaining human ships, those that could still function, scattered in all directions. With Thorn in command, they launched a desperate, coordinated counterattack. The Spectre warships, hidden for now, would remain out of sight, biding their time to strike the Dominari when the moment was right. Let them come, Kayla muttered to herself, her voice steady despite the mounting pressure. Let them underestimate us one more time. The vanguard was a beacon of defiance as it darted through the battlefield, attracting the full force of the Dominari assault. Energy beams lashed out, but each shot narrowly missed the ship, expertly maneuvered through the dark void of space. Every second counted as the battle raged on, the sounds of explosions and the shattering of metal reverberating across the war-torn expanse. Suddenly, a high-pitched alarm pierced through the chaos. General! The Spectres are in position, one of the technicians shouted. Kayla's eyes flickered to the display, watching as the cloaked warships suddenly materialized in the distance. The Dominari, unable to detect the stealth ships, fired into the empty darkness, their shots nothing but wasted energy. A deep rumble shook the vanguard as the Spectres began their counterattack. Every one of the hidden warships, cloaked and deadly, unleashed devastating volleys of energy blasts, striking the Dominari fleet with surgical precision. The first wave of their ships exploded in a brilliant flash, and the remainder of their fleet was thrown into disarray. The Spectres had emerged from the shadows, their deadly power now unleashed, catching the Dominari completely off guard. But victory came at a heavy price. Kayla could feel the purge working its way into her body. The toxins had already begun to weaken her, blurring her vision, causing her limbs to feel heavy. She wasn't the only one. The entire crew of the Vanguard was succumbing to the effects. It was becoming harder to breathe, harder to focus. Jace, get to the Spectres. I can't, Kayla coughed, her voice barely audible over the static. I can't hold much longer. General, Thorn said urgently, his voice strained. We'll get you there. Just hold on. But Kayla knew it was too late. They had done all they could, buying the rest of the fleet time to escape. Now, it was up to the Spectres to finish the fight. And even though the Purge was threatening to claim her life, she refused to let it defeat humanity. The last chance for the species was now in the hands of the Spectres, the apex weapons that would carry humanity into its new era. The battle raged on, but the tide had shifted. For the first time in the war, the Dominari were on the back foot. They had been blindsided, outmaneuvered by the humans' desperation, their cunning, and their unwillingness to surrender. But Kayla couldn't shake the feeling that the war was far from over. The Dominari would fight to the last. The stakes were higher than ever. And humanity, though wounded and broken, had proven something important on this day, that they could be more than prey. They could be the apex predators. As the Vanguard limped toward the Spectres, Kayla closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of what had been lost, but also the incredible promise of what lay ahead. The stars would never be the same again. The Vanguard limped into the shadow of the Spectre fleet, its hull battered and systems barely functioning. Kayla Reyes, barely conscious, fought against the creeping darkness in her vision. Every breath she took felt like it might be her last. The Purge had ravaged her body, a slow, agonizing death that left her mind struggling to stay afloat in a sea of pain. But through the haze, she could hear the quiet hum of the Spectre ships, their engines purring with readiness. They had done it. The fleet was safe. For now. But the fight wasn't over. As the Spectres cloaked and began regrouping, Jace Thorn rushed to Kayla's side, his face drawn and covered in sweat, the effects of the purge evident even on him. He knelt beside her, gripping her shoulder gently. General, he said, voice tight with emotion, we did it. We bought them time. The fleet's in hiding, and the Dominari are reeling from the surprise attack. But we're not out of the woods yet. The purge is spreading faster than expected. Kayla's lips trembled, but she forced out a weak smile. I knew it wouldn't be easy. Nothing worth fighting for ever is. The words felt hollow, but they were the only ones she could muster. The weight of their actions, the sacrifices that had been made, hung heavy on her. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. And the purge? It was still a constant threat. With the resistance fleet safe for the moment, the only thing they could do was wait, and plan. We need a cure, Kayla rasped, her voice barely a whisper. A weapon to stop the purge. We can't let it spread any further. Thorn nodded grimly. We've already begun research, but with our resources stretched thin, it's going to take time. Every moment counts. Kayla's mind raced. Time was something they didn't have much of. If the purge spread to the human colonies, it would be a mass extinction. The galaxy would burn, and humanity's dream of becoming the apex species would crumble. A sharp chime sounded through the bridge, interrupting her thoughts. A new message had been received, a secure transmission from one of the Spectre ships. Kayla motioned weakly for it to be opened. The holodisplay flickered to life, and an image of Captain Lila Sharp, leader of one of the Spectre fleets, appeared. Her face was a mixture of determination and grim resignation. General Reyes, Captain Sharp began, her voice measured but heavy with the weight of the situation, we've analyzed the data from the last battle. The Dominari have something else, a backup plan. They've launched a deep space weapon. It's targeting every human stronghold in the system. If we don't stop it now, we won't have anything left to fight for. Kayla's heart sank. What kind of weapon? Sharp's image flickered, and she hesitated for a moment, before speaking again, her voice full of urgency. It's a planet killer, General. A destabilizer. It won't just wipe out the colonies, it'll destroy the very fabric of the system, creating a black hole that will tear apart the entire region. Jace Thorne's face paled as the gravity of the situation hit. We're talking about an extinction-level event. Kayla clenched her fists, ignoring the pain that shot up her arm. The Purge, the Dominari fleets, the planet killer, they were all pieces in a larger puzzle, and humanity was stuck in the middle of it. The universe had been treating them as prey, as weak, as insignificant. But that perception was about to change. Humanity would either rise or be wiped out. And if they were going to survive, they would need to act swiftly, decisively, and with everything they had. I won't let them destroy everything we fought for, Kayla said, her voice filled with newfound strength. We will stop that weapon, no matter the cost. Sharp's hologram nodded solemnly. We'll need every available ship. The Spectres will be key, but we'll need the resistance to back us up. We're assembling a strike team. But General, this mission will be one way for most of us. If we don't act now, we won't have time for a second attempt. Kayla knew the stakes were high, but the fire in her chest, the fire that had been sparked when she first saw the devastation of the Purge, burned brighter than ever. This was their final stand. If they didn't act now, the Dominari's plan would succeed, and all they had worked for would be gone. Jace, she said, her voice strong, assemble the fleet. We strike now. Hours later, the fleet had been assembled. The Spectres, their stealth technology making them nearly invisible, took the lead. The remaining resistance ships, battered but unbroken, followed behind, their weapons loaded and ready. Kayla stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, staring out at the vastness of space, her thoughts racing. The Dominari had underestimated humanity before. Now, they were going to learn that underestimating humanity was a mistake they would never make again. We move quickly, and we move together, she ordered. No one gets left behind. Our target is the weapon. We take it out, or we die trying. The fleet accelerated, moving toward the deep space weapon that threatened the galaxy. There was no turning back now. The battle was coming to its final, decisive moment. And this time, humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their place as the apex predators of the stars. The fleet surged forward, breaking through the black void of space with a single purpose, to stop the Dominari's deep space weapon. The strike team, led by the cloaked specters, was the tip of humanity's spear. Behind them, the remnants of the Resistance fleet followed, their weapons powered up and ready, despite the damage and the effects of the purge still seeping through their systems. This was it, the final mission. Kayla Reyes stood at the helm of the Vanguard, her mind focused and sharp, though her body still ached with the effects of the purge. Her crew, battered but loyal, surrounded her, the silence of the bridge broken only by the soft hum of the ship's failing engines. Their survival depended on a calculated risk, on taking down a weapon that could obliterate humanity's future. "I want all systems ready," Kayla commanded, her voice steady despite the fatigue weighing on her. "We'll hit them hard and fast. No hesitation." Beside her, Commander Thorne gave a sharp nod. "We've trained for this. We're ready." The specters, invisible and deadly, peeled off from the fleet, darting toward the weapon's location in the far reaches of the system. Their stealth systems made them nearly impossible to detect, but Kayla knew that once they reached the weapon's vicinity, all bets were off. The Dominari would know they were there, and a full-scale battle would begin. Time was their greatest enemy. The deep space destabilizer had been activated, its ominous presence pulsing in the darkness ahead. The plan was simple: destroy the weapon before it could deploy. If they couldn't, they would all be caught in the blast, a fiery, chaotic death that would consume everything in its wake. The specters neared the target, cloaking themselves in the depths of space, hiding among the debris of long-forgotten asteroids. The fleet of Resistance ships fell into a defensive formation, their weapon systems primed for the battle to come. Kayla's eyes flickered between the holographic screens that showed the status of every ship, every maneuver. Her heart was steady, but her mind was calculating. "General," Thorne's voice interrupted her thoughts. "We're in position. The specters are locked on. The weapon is still charging, but it's almost ready." Kayla's stomach twisted in anticipation. The moment of truth was upon them. She glanced at the comm screen, where Captain Sharp's face appeared once again, as composed as ever, though her eyes were hard. "We're in position, General," Sharp said. "The destabilizer is almost fully charged. We've got one shot at this. You'll need to provide the distraction. We'll make our move the moment you draw their fire." "Understood," Kayla replied, her voice calm and firm. "We're not backing down." With a final glance at her crew, Kayla pressed the activation command, sending the Vanguard into motion. They surged forward, weapons blazing as they cut through the distance to the weapon. The first volley from the Dominari fleet came quickly, a barrage of energy beams that slammed into the Vanguard's shields, causing them to flare brightly before stabilizing. The Resistance fleet followed, charging headlong into the fray. The Spectres, remaining hidden, took up flanking positions, setting the stage for the final strike. Every shot, every maneuver was a calculated risk. The Dominari were more powerful than they had anticipated, but humanity was not about to back down. For every hit the Vanguard took, it retaliated twice as fiercely. Kayla felt the ship shudder as an explosion rocked the hull, but she refused to let it show. The purge still gnawed at her body, but her mind was sharp, her focus unwavering. "Thorne!" Kayla shouted over the noise. "Keep them off our tail. We need time for the Spectres to do their job." "We're on it, General." Thorne barked, his voice filled with determination. The Vanguard launched another salvo, a massive explosion rippling outward as the Dominari flagship staggered back, momentarily stunned. But the battle was far from over. The Dominari regrouped, their ships forming an impenetrable wall around the destabilizer. Kayla knew it was only a matter of time before they would launch their final assault, if the Resistance didn't break first. "Spectres, now!" Sharp's voice rang out over the comms. With a flash, the cloaked warships tore through the battlefield, their weapons locking onto the destabilizer. The first strike hit its target, a direct hit to the weapon's core. The destabilizer's energy core flared briefly, then flickered out. But it wasn't enough. The weapon was still functional, its internal systems still operational. "Not enough!" Kayla yelled, her voice full of urgency. We need to finish it. The Vanguard was already hurtling toward the weapon, its engines roaring as it closed in. Kayla knew what had to be done. It was the only option left. Brace for impact, she ordered, her fingers moving over the console as she adjusted the ship's course. General, don't! Thorne shouted, realizing what she was about to do. You can't. But it was too late. Kayla had already engaged the override. The Vanguard broke free of its pursuit and made a suicidal charge directly into the heart of the weapon's core. The collision was deafening, a blast of light so bright it blinded the sensors, and then, silence. The weapon's pulse stopped. The final wave of Dominari ships was thrown off course as the core of the destabilizer collapsed in on itself, neutralized by the force of the Vanguard's impact. The explosion sent ripples through the system, but the weapon, and the threat it posed, was gone. For a moment, there was nothing but the soft hum of the fleet's engines, the ships hanging in space, suspended in the aftermath of the battle. Then, the comms crackled back to life. General Reyes, Captain Sharp's voice came through, shaky but relieved. It's done. You did it. Kayla leaned back in her seat, breathing shallowly, her body racked with exhaustion and the lingering poison of the purge. We did it, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Humanity is still here. We're not done. With that, the fleet began its retreat, battered but unbroken. The fight for the stars had been long and brutal, but humanity had proven its place. They had fought back the predators, fought for survival, and in the end, they had emerged victorious. Humanity had become the apex species. And the stars? They were theirs to claim.